Imagine if Earth stopped spinning. Picture this. You're standing on the equator when, in a blink, you and everything around you are suddenly launched sideways at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. This isn't a wild action movie scene. It's the instant, terrifying reality of what would happen if the Earth just stopped spinning. So what if the music just cut out? We're going to look at two terrifying ways it could all end if that rotation suddenly stopped. In one version, the world ends in a flash of unimaginable chaos. In the other, it's a slow, grinding apocalypse that would redraw the entire globe into something utterly alien. For nearly 4.5 billion years, our planet has been doing a constant, silent dance that gives us our days, our weather, and pretty much our entire existence. It's the instant flash. An end in a nanosecond tectonic plates would slam into each other, triggering immeasurable earthquakes and causing volcanoes worldwide to erupt all at once. Within minutes, the surface of the Earth would be an unrecognizable molten nightmare. Let's imagine that instead of stopping instantly, the Earth's rotation began to slow down over decades or centuries. This is actually a bit more scientifically plausible, since tidal friction from the moon is already slowing us down by a tiny fraction of a second every century. If that process were to speed up dramatically, it would kick off an equally devastating, just much slower apocalypse. In this scenario, there's no such thing as survival. The end is swift, absolute, and total. First up, the most violent scenario, an instantaneous dead stop. As the rotation slows, that force weakens. And without it, gravity starts to call all the shots. It's a wild reminder that the forces governing our planet are both incredibly powerful and fragile. If you find these cosmic what-ifs as fascinating as we do, and you want to keep exploring the science of our universe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next. On the side facing the sun, temperatures would steadily climb past 100 degrees Celsius, hot enough to boil away any remaining water. That side of the planet would become a scorched, sterile desert. The oceans would then begin a great slow migration away from the equator and toward the poles. And the atmosphere itself could begin to freeze and snow down onto the surface. To really get how bad this would be, we have to talk about a little thing called inertia. A critical protection our planet gives us is its magnetic field, which is generated by the motion of its molten iron core process tied to the planet's spin. If the rotation stops, that magnetic field would likely weaken dramatically or even collapse. Without it, the surface would be blasted with deadly solar winds and cosmic radiation, making cancer and radiation sickness a constant threat for anyone who dared to venture out of a heavily shielded shelter. Survival in the twilight zone would be a desperate, unending struggle on a world that's actively trying to kill you. Instead, a terrifyingly simple new weather pattern would emerge. Superheated air from the hot side would constantly rush toward the frozen cold side, creating continent-spanning superstorms with winds that would make today's hurricanes feel like a joke. Now, this doesn't mean one side would face the sun forever. It's a silent, constant gift of planetary engine that drives our climate, shapes our continents, and shields us from the brutal realities of space. It forces us to appreciate the invisible forces that make our world work and to recognize just how fragile our little blue marble truly is. Since the Earth would still be orbiting the sun, the day-night cycle would become 1 year long. Any single spot on the planet would get 6 straight months of brutal, unrelenting sunlight, followed by 6 months of absolute freezing darkness. Anything not literally fused to the bedrock people, buildings, oceans, you name it, would continue its eastward journey at supersonic speeds. The real trouble starts with a force you probably don't think about much: centrifugal force. But that would be the least of our problems. The only sliver of the planet that might be habitable would be in the twilight zone, a narrow strip of land between the scorched day side and the frozen night side. This band of perpetual dusk would follow the Terminator line as the Earth orbited the sun, meaning survivors would have to be nomads, constantly migrating to stay in the sliver of temperate land. Everything on the surface would be scoured clean, torn from its foundations, and flung across the landscape in a planetary-scale disaster. Newton's first law says an object in motion stays in motion. Water would drain from the equatorial regions, uncovering a vast new strip of land. Some models suggest a new supercontinent could emerge, wrapping around the planet's waist like a giant belt. Meanwhile, all that water would pool at the poles, creating two new massive polar oceans. Right now, the atmosphere, the oceans, and everything on Earth are whipping through space at incredible speeds. At the equator, you're cruising at about 1,670 kilometers per hour. In their place would be this new equatorial landmass, a dry world born from the receding seas. For a while, humanity might try to adapt, moving populations away from the slowly flooding north and south. But this new world would be setting an even deadlier trap. The only reason you don't feel it is because everything is moving together. But if the solid planet suddenly hit the brakes, your inertia would not. The planet's massive bodies of water would surge eastward in continent drowning, mega tsunamis that would wash over everything, erasing mountains and cities alike. At the same time, the atmosphere, which also has all that forward momentum, would create winds that would make any hurricane look like a light breeze, scouring the surface and generating friction storms of incredible heat. But the real world breaker, the oceans. And if that wasn't enough, the abrupt halt would create unbelievable stress on the Earth's crust. It's a slow grind, a different kind of apocalypse. But what if the end wasn't a sudden jolt, but a long, drawn-out nightmare? The first thing we'd notice is our days and nights getting longer and longer, which would throw our internal biological clocks into total chaos. Earth's spin creates a slight bulge at the equator, which holds a massive amount of the planet's ocean water in place. Everything north of Spain and Europe could be underwater. Canada and much of Russia would be submerged. The great migration of oceans as the rotation slows over the years, the world map would be completely redrawn. The geography of this new Earth would be bizarre. This reshaping of the world is just the beginning of the slow-motion apocalypse. The year-long day and the frozen night, eventually, the Earth could slow to a complete stop relative to the stars. The climate would become a nightmare of extremes. On the dark side, the exact opposite would happen. With no sunlight for half a year, temperatures would plummet to unimaginable lows. Weather as we know it would be gone. The Coriolis effects, the force from Earth's spin that creates our swirling hurricanes, would vanish. The twilight zone, humanity's last stand. So is there any hope in this new world? Maybe, but even there, life would be hanging by a thread. So whether it's an instant, fiery catastrophe or a slow, grinding transformation, one thing is crystal clear. The simple act of spinning is one of the most vital ingredients for life on Earth. The fact that our planet's spin is already slowing, even by just a tiny bit each century, is a humbling reminder that we exist in a delicate, improbable balance.